January 27, 1945, 8:30 p.m. 10,000 Allied airmen men who bombed Berlin, who flew through flak storms, who once ruled the skies over Europe, are now ordered to march into a blizzard by guards who can barely hold their rifles. Not toward freedom, not toward execution, toward nothing. Just an unknown road west. Into the coldest winter in 50 years. The Soviets are 30 miles behind them. The SS wants them dead. The Luftwaffe wants them alive. And Robert Buckham, clutching a forbidden diary that could get him shot, knows one thing: this march will kill more men than any bombing raid ever did. His hands shake as he writes by candlelight. Lockers stripped, panic everywhere. They say we march tonight. God help us. Winter 1945, the coldest in 50 years, minus 22 degrees Celsius. Cold enough to freeze spit before it hits the ground. The Red Army is 30 miles away. Their artillery shakes the frozen earth like a continuous earthquake. At night, prisoners can see the glow of burning villages on the eastern horizon. Stalin's forces are coming, and everyone knows what the Soviets do to Germans. Hitler's Reich is collapsing. The Allies push from the west. The Soviets crush from the east. Germany is being squeezed to death. On January 27th, the order arrives at Stalag Luft III: evacuate. Immediately. Keep the prisoners alive. They're bargaining chips now. Human shields, political leverage. 10,000 Allied airmen pilots, navigators, bombardiers, gunners are suddenly worth more alive than dead. But there's no plan, no trains, no trucks, no food stockpiles, no shelter prepared, just an order: march west. Stay ahead of the Soviets. Don't let the prisoners fall into Russian hands. The march will cover over 100 kilometers through Poland and Germany, across frozen plains where the wind cuts like razors, through burning towns where refugees clog every road, past mass graves and abandoned vehicles and bodies frozen in the ditches. This isn't a military evacuation. It's a collision of human suffering on an unimaginable scale. German civilians flee Soviet vengeance, old women pulling carts, children with frostbitten feet, families abandoning homes their ancestors built centuries ago. Jewish prisoners are dragged from camps, skeletal ghosts in striped uniforms, many barefoot stumbling through snow that turns pink with blood from their feet. Russian forced laborers, starved, beaten, worked nearly to death, now stumble west alongside their former captors. And now, 10,000 Allied airmen join this exodus: Americans, Canadians, Britons, New Zealanders. Everyone is a refugee now. The whole Eastern Front collapses into chaos. Empathy spreads across universal suffering because the cold doesn't care about nationality. The Luftwaffe guards are terrified. Some are 17-year-old boys who join to avoid the meat grinder of the Eastern Front. Others are broken veterans, men missing fingers from frostbite, limping on feet. They can barely feel haunted by what they saw in Russia. Their families are fleeing too. Their wives and children are somewhere in the refugee columns running from the Red Army. The guards know exactly what the Soviets do to German soldiers. They've heard the stories from the east. Inside Stalag Luft III, panic spreads like wildfire. Rumors race through the barracks we're being handed to the Soviets. The SS is coming to execute us. They're marching us to a death camp. We'll be used as human shields when the Allies bomb. No one knows the truth, not even the camp commandant. Orders come from Berlin, but Berlin is burning. The chain of command is broken. The prisoners scramble to prepare. Kit bags become makeshift sleds tied with salvaged rope and wire. Bedboards are ripped from bunks and lashed together to create crude runners that men can drag behind them. Cigarettes, the camp's unofficial currency more valuable than gold, are carefully rationed and hidden. Food from Red Cross parcels is divided into tiny portions. Rumors become nightmares whispered in the darkness. What if the Red Cross parcels stop coming? What if the guards start shooting stragglers? What if we freeze to death in the first night? Men make impossible calculations. How much weight can I carry? How many extra socks do I take, the blanket or the food? Can I walk 100 kilometers in these boots? Outside, the blizzard intensifies. Snow falls so thick you can't see 20 feet. The temperature drops. The wind howls like a living thing. Searchlights along the wire cast ghostly beams through the storm, illuminating nothing but endless white. Guard dogs bark frantically, sensing the chaos, the fear, the electric tension of an empire dying. At 8:30 p.m., the final order echoes through the camp. Form up, 5 men abreast. Take only what you can carry. We march in 30 minutes. 10,000 men pilots who once flew above this misery, who controlled million-dollar bombers, who had power now shuffle into formation like refugees, like prisoners, like men with no control over anything. The barracks empty, the lights go dark. The wire that held them for years now fades behind them into the storm. They march west, into a blizzard, into the coldest night of the coldest winter in half a century, into the unknown. And every man knows some of us won't survive this. In the corner of Barrack 104, Robert Buckham makes a choice that could get him killed. He's 27 years old, Royal Canadian Air Force pilot. Before the war, a trained artist, the kind who could capture a face with 6 pencil strokes. Now he's prisoner 1449, shot down over the Netherlands on April 8, 1943. His Lancaster took flak through the starboard wing. The plane shuddered. Wing caught fire. He bailed out at 18,000 feet, landed in a farmer's field, captured within hours. 2 years inside Stalag Luft III. But Buckham never stopped being an artist. He sketches on cigarette papers, thin, fragile, they tear if you press too hard. On scraps of Red Cross cardboard, on the backs of forms. He draws faces ravaged by hunger, hands gripping wire, guard towers against dawn, winter light through windows like a blade. He draws because it's the only thing the guards can't take, because these pencil lines prove he's still human, fighting despair with pencil lines. That's what keeps him alive. Around him, chaos. Men stuff belongings into kit bags with shaking hands. An American wraps his feet in newspaper pulls on socks that are more whole than fabric. A British flight lieutenant tears a blanket in half, ties it around his waist for warmth. A New Zealander bombardier packs his last tin of Spam and a photograph of his wife. Stares at it for 10 seconds. Tucks it inside his jacket close to his heart. These men were once rivals. Americans who mocked British tea. Canadians who laughed at American overconfidence. Different missions, different commands competing for kills over Germany. Now they are brothers. Once rival aircrew, now brothers in hunger. Hunger erases nationality. Cold erases rank. Survival erases everything except the man beside you. They share blankets on the coldest nights, 2 men pressed together, dignity abandoned. They trade food chocolate for cigarettes, jam for bread. They tell stories to stay awake when cold makes you want to sleep and sleeping means dying. Stories about home, girls they loved, planes they flew, what they'll do when this is over, if this is ever over. In the dim barracks glow a homemade lamp tin can filled with fat and a smoking cloth wick. Buckham watches his barracks mates prepare, kit bags stuffed beyond capacity, bedboards ripped from bunks' nails screaming tied with wire to create crude sleds. Men argue in whispers. Extra food or extra clothing, boots with holes or boots that don't fit. Every choice could mean life or death. Jenkins turns to Buckham. "You bringing that?" He nods at the diary. Buckham looks at the sketches tucked inside his jacket. Pages filled with forbidden drawings, forbidden words, forbidden testimony. If guards find it, they'll confiscate it, burn it, beat him. The Geneva Convention says prisoners can keep diaries, but the Geneva Convention is a joke out here. "Yeah," Buckham says quietly. "I'm bringing it." Jenkins nods. "Good. Someone's got to remember this." Buckham buttons his jacket. The diary presses against his ribs where guards won't see it. The pages are fragile. Pencil marks smudge easily. But these lines are his resistance, his refusal to be erased. his proof that 10,000 men existed here, suffered here, and that what happens next must be remembered. Outside, the wind screams like a living creature. The barracks door crashes open. A Luftwaffe guard, middle-aged, exhausted, afraid, shouts, "Raus, raus, schnell! Out, out, quickly!" Men grab packs, shoulder burdens, form ragged lines. Soft laughter fades into silence. Jokes stop. Bravado drains. Reality sets in. Buckham steps into the blizzard. Cold hits like a fist. Wind tears breath from lungs. Snow stings like needles. He can barely see the man ahead. Camp lights fade into white void. Wire disappears. Guard towers vanish. Ahead, the column stretches into darkness. 10,000 shadows hunched against the storm, shuffling west into nothing. Buckham cannot see the end. He does not know if there is one. He only knows the sky used to be his kingdom. He flew above clouds, above chaos, above war. He had control, power, mission. Now he's on the ground, in the mud, in the cold. The only thing he controls is a pencil, but maybe that's enough. January 28th, 4:00 a.m. The march begins with a lie. Just a few kilometers. We'll stop soon. 36 kilometers in one day across ice. No food, no rest, no mercy. Men collapse within the first hour. Not from weakness, from cold punching through lungs like broken glass. Food becomes dead weight rations hoarded for months, thrown into snowbanks because shoulders can't bear another ounce. Frostbite blackens fingers within minutes. Toes go numb, then burn as tissue dies. Dysentery hits without warning, men double over in ditches. Pants around ankles exposed to wind that feels like knives. By dawn, the column is a trail of discarded humanity. Blankets and snow. Boots beside the road owner's feet, too swollen to wear them. Kit bags abandoned like garbage. One POW, a navigator from Ohio who survived 30 bombing missions, falls face first into the snow. Doesn't get up. Two friends grab him under the armpits and drag. They don't ask if he can walk. His boots carve twin trenches in ice. They walk without speaking. Breath comes in ragged gasps that freeze on their collars. 14 seconds of absolute silence. Only wind, only faint breath, only the crunch of boots on frozen ground like bones breaking. The guards panic worse than the prisoners. Their families flee, 2 wives, children, parents, somewhere in the endless refugee columns. Some guards' homes already burned behind Soviet lines. At night, they see the glow on the eastern horizon getting closer. The Red Army advances 10 kilometers a day. These guards know what the Soviets do to German soldiers. Some guards desert, drop rifles in snow and disappear into refugee columns, shedding uniforms as they walk. Others tighten their grip on Kar 98K rifles and march in silence, eyes scanning for Soviet tanks. Hands shake, not from cold, from fear. The columns cross paths at every intersection. Starving Germans with hollow eyes pull carts loaded with heirlooms they can't abandon. Skeletal Jewish prisoners in striped uniforms barefoot stumble through snow that turns pink with blood. Russian forced laborers, gaunt and silent, shuffle west alongside guards who beat them yesterday. The POWs see their suffering reflected in 10,000 other faces. War does not discriminate. It devours everyone. By the third day, men hallucinate. See farmhouses that don't exist, hear mothers calling from tree lines, walk into fence posts and don't feel impact. One British pilot has a full conversation with his dead brother. An American stops mid-step and sings "Silent Night" in a cracked voice. No one stops him. They walk around him until he collapses. Guards drive them forward with shouts, but guards are starving too. Same thin soup when there is soup. Same frozen barns when they're allowed to stop. The line between captor and captive blurs like the horizon in the blizzard. On the fourth night, in a barn stinking of animal waste and human desperation, something happens. A guard, maybe 20, face raw from windburn, sits beside a Canadian pilot. Neither speaks. The guard pulls out a cigarette, lights it, takes a drag, passes it to the prisoner. The Canadian takes it, hands trembling, takes a drag, passes it back. They sit together in darkness. Smoke rises into frozen air. Two strangers united by exhaustion. Two enemies who've forgotten why they're enemies. Across the barn, Buckham watches, fingers too numb to hold a pencil. But his mind records everything. The guard's hollow eyes, the prisoner's shaking hands, the cigarette passing back and forth like an unauthorized peace treaty. Later, when fingers thaw, he draws it, lines shaky. But he captures the truth in this frozen hell. The war has stopped making sense. Men are dying, not from bullets, from cold, from hunger, from walking. The strongest men survivors of years in camp interrogations, beatings, starvation, drop like flies. A 25-year-old bombardier dies in his sleep. A 30-year-old pilot collapses mid-step and never wakes. Bodies are left beside the road because no one has strength to bury them. Buckham writes by moonlight crouched in the barn corner, fingers barely forming letters, feet frozen, hunger unbearable, spirits cracking. He looks at what he's written, considers adding more. But what else is there to say? The silence says everything. In the misery, something impossible happens. Small sparks of humanity break through the ice. February 1st, the column passes through a German village. Houses dark, shutters closed, chimneys cold. Villagers peer from behind curtains, afraid of everything. Most stay hidden. But one German woman steps outside. She's old, back bent from decades of farm work, hands red and cracked like raw meat. She carries a kettle of boiling water, steam rising into frozen air like a signal flare. She walks directly toward the prisoners. A Luftwaffe guard sees her, barks in German, voice sharp, threatening. "Get back inside now." She ignores him, walks past like he doesn't exist. She offers the kettle to prisoners. Men extend cups, tin cans, mess kits, anything that holds liquid. She pours. Steam rises. Men cup hands around warmth, faces, slackening eyes, closing. For 5 seconds, they're not prisoners. They're human beings feeling warmth. The guard shouts again, louder, steps toward her with his rifle. The woman turns, looks him in the eye, and dumps the remaining water onto the snow. 8 seconds of pause. Water hisses as it hits ice, then absolute silence. She walks back inside, shuts the door, doesn't look back. The prisoners stare at the snow. The guard lowers his rifle, says nothing, his face unreadable. The column moves on. In another town, a German mother appears in a doorway. Her children watch from behind, faces thin, eyes too large. She holds a loaf of dark bread, real bread. She trades it for cigarettes. Not to smoke, because cigarettes are currency, can be traded for medicine, firewood, survival. Her children stare with hollow eyes. One boy, maybe 7, whispers something. She shakes her head. But the boy breaks free and runs to a Canadian prisoner, hands him a bottle, Jamaican rum. God knows where a 7-year-old found Jamaican rum in February 1945, but he gives it to a starving enemy soldier and runs back. The bottle passes down the line. Men take sips. Eyes water from the burn. Some cough. Some laugh. The bottle travels through 50 hands before it's empty. A woman on a refugee wagon, German civilian fleeing Soviets, laughs quietly into the wind as she passes. The sound is strange, broken. Buckham cannot interpret it. Madness, relief, defiance. He doesn't know. He only knows laughter in this place is either miracle or insanity. Maybe both. 12 seconds of breath hold. Only wind carries the sound away into nothing. And so, Buckham draws. Every night when the column stops barns, frozen fields, sometimes not at all, he draws by candlelight or moonlight. Faces of guards, hands of prisoners, frozen roads, distant fires, the way light falls on snow like hope dying. the way exhaustion sits in shoulders like invisible weight. It is forbidden. No records, no documentation, no evidence. If discovered, the diary will be confiscated. He could be beaten, shot, made an example. But he draws anyway, because these lines are his fight, his refusal to be erased, his proof that even in a death march, humanity survives in the smallest gestures. He sketches the woman with the kettle, her bent back, her defiant eyes, steam rising from water. He sketches the boy with rum, the bottle passing through enemy hands. He sketches the guard who shared his cigarette. Smoke rising between captor and captive like a bridge. Candle-lit pages glow softly. Pencil scratches across paper barely audible over wind. Steam rises from shared mugs. His sketches dissolve in and out of memory as he works. And he writes voice barely a whisper in his mind. I draw to stay sane. These lines are my fight. 10 seconds of pencil scratch audio. The sound cuts through silence like a declaration against oblivion. Buckham knows something the guards don't. They can take his food, his warmth, his freedom, his dignity. But they can't take this. Can't take the woman who poured water, the boy who gave rum, the guard who shared smoke. Can't erase these moments of mercy. As long as he keeps drawing, these moments survive. Small mercies resisting a collapsing world. Moral ambiguity lives in laughter amid pain. And somewhere in the frozen darkness, in a column of 10,000 dying men, hope flickers. Not hope for rescue, not hope for liberation, just hope that someone will remember that these small acts, a kettle of water, a bottle of rum, a shared cigarette, will matter. That humanity, even reduced to its smallest gesture, is worth recording, worth fighting for, worth remembering. Spreemburg, February 2nd. The prisoners arrive expecting salvation. Trains mean warmth, rest, an end to walking. They're wrong, separated by nationality. Americans one direction, Canadians and Britons another. Men who survived together for weeks torn apart. Handshakes, silent nods, eyes that say, if I don't see you again, it's been an honor. Then they see the cattle cars, G10 freight cars, same ones used for livestock, ammunition, Jews to camps, 40 men per car. Schnell inside now. No straw, no water, no ventilation, just a metal box. Doors slam like gunshots. Darkness swallows them. 40 men crammed shoulder to shoulder, can't sit, can't lie down, can barely breathe. The single water bucket empties within an hour. Then it becomes the latrine. The train lurches. Men stumble. Someone retches, triggering others. The stench becomes unbearable. Vomit, urine, feces, fear. This is hell. Hours pass, maybe days. Time dies in darkness. Men faint and are held upright because there's no room to fall. The unconscious propped up like corpses. Some hallucinate, scream about fire and mothers. Others pray in whispers. A few stare into darkness, minds fleeing to safer places. Men cling to one another just to stand. Strangers become life support. Then a sound that freezes every heart. Aircraft engines overhead. P-47 Thunderbolts. American fighters. Republic radial engines screaming at 300 miles per hour. Those are ours. Those are American. Relief floods through darkness. Rescue. Finally. Then reality hits. The train is unmarked. No Red Cross. To pilots above, this is just another Nazi supply train. Another target. Prisoners pound walls until knuckles split, scream until throats tear. We're allied, we're prisoners. But pilots can't hear them. Outside, a teenage guard freezes. He's 17, rifle rattles in his hands. Joined the Luftwaffe to avoid the Eastern Front. Now he's about to die under American bombs. His face illuminated by winter sun. Mouth open, eyes wide, rifle slips from shaking hands. Fighters circle, reconnaissance, lining up. Inside, men pray, weep, hold each other. Buckham thinks after 2 years in camp, After the coldest winter in 50 years, I'm going to die from friendly fire, killed by my own side. The irony is unbearable. The second pass comes fast. 850 caliber machine guns per aircraft, 4,000 rounds per minute, P-47s dive engines screaming guns hammering, tracer fire slices through air, red, orange, white, beautiful and terrible. Bullets stitch across the railway yard. Sparks explode. The sound inside is deafening, like being inside a drum beaten by hammers. Darkness shakes. The world becomes noise and terror and cordite and hot metal. Men scream, but you can't hear them. The train shudders. Stops. 5 seconds of silence. Ears ringing like underwater. Then doors thrown open. Light floods in, blinding. Rouse, rouse, out now. POWs leap from cars, diving into ditches as fighters make another pass. Bullets stitch metal walls. Sparks fly. Snow explodes. Buckham hits frozen earth, mouth full of snow. He presses his face down and covers his head. Fighters roar overhead. Shadows cross sun. Noise physical, pressing chest, shaking bones. Bullets rip empty cars. Metal screams. Rails explode. Fighters bank away. Wings flash silver. Gone. Silence. Not peaceful. The silence of shock, of survival, of not understanding how you're alive. Men lie in ditches gasping. Some laugh hysterically. Others weep. A few stare at sky, unable to process. Hunter became hunted. Liberation became execution. The teenage guard sits in snow, rifle across lap. Trembling so badly, teeth chatter. Illuminated by red-orange flashes during attack, now frozen in shock. A Canadian prisoner crawls over, sits beside him. Neither speaks. They simply breathe. Two humans who almost died together. Labels that suddenly mean nothing. Buckham stands, checks for wounds. Nothing. Somehow nothing. Bullet holes stitched across cars. If they'd stayed inside, half would be dead. He pulls out his diary, hands shaking. But he draws. The cars, the holes, the guard, prisoners in ditches. One sentence. We almost died from our own side. I don't know if God is laughing or weeping. Peak tension. Hunter becomes hunted. Guard fear versus POW solidarity facing death from the sky. March arrives, but brings no relief. Spring thaw turns snow into sucking mud. Frozen roads become rivers of filth. Boots disintegrate. Feet bleed with every step leaving pink tracks. But something shifts. Guards discard helmets. Gear, insignia. They know. The war is lost. Hitler's 1,000-year Reich dies in its 12th year. Some guards desert drop rifles and vanish. Others simply stop giving orders. Walk alongside prisoners in silence, eyes hollow. The war is lost in their eyes. White sheets hang from windows. Surrender flags. Townspeople watch and something breaks. German civilians cry at how young the prisoners are, how thin. These aren't terror bombers from propaganda. These are boys. Starving boys who look like their sons. An old man steps from his house, holding dark rye bread, probably his family's week ration. Hands it to a British prisoner. Voice cracks. I have a son. He is a prisoner in Russia. I pray someone feeds him. The prisoner takes the bread. Can't speak. Tears run down his face. The old man goes back inside. Sometimes villagers just give. A woman hands milk to a Canadian, refuses payment. A farmer leaves potatoes beside the road, walks away before anyone can thank him. Mercy travels faster than cruelty now. At a crossroads near Falling Bostel, the POW column crosses Buchenwald survivors. Skeletal men in striped uniforms, eyes sunken like skulls. Some barefoot, some carrying comrades. The POWs, starving themselves, barely human, stop and share their food. Hands tremble as bread passes from one suffering man to another. Chocolate, Spam, biscuits. 8 seconds of slow motion close-up on trembling hands passing bread. No words, just humanity. One Buchenwald survivor, a Polish Jew weighing maybe 80 pounds, takes bread from an American pilot. Whispers in broken English, "Why?" "Because you need it more than I do." The survivor weeps from disbelief that kindness still exists. Buckham draws, hands shaking, but he captures it: bent figures, outstretched hands, quiet exchange. Then the SS arrive, black uniforms, death's head insignia, trucks and barked orders, rounding up prisoners as last-minute bargaining chips, human shields. SS officers try to seize the POWs, rifles raised, the Luftwaffe guards refuse. A Luftwaffe Hauptmann, middle-aged, scar across cheek, knight's cross, at throat steps between SS and prisoners. One word: 9. The SS officer steps forward. These prisoners are now under SS jurisdiction. Step aside. These men are Luftwaffe prisoners. They remain under Luftwaffe protection. I'm ordering you. I don't take orders from the SS. The SS officer's hand goes to his pistol. Luftwaffe guards raise rifles, not at prisoners, at SS. 10 seconds. No one breathes. Germans pointing weapons at Germans. The SS officer looks at Luftwaffe guards, sees they're ready to shoot. These guards marched with these prisoners for 6 weeks. Shared cigarettes, shared fear, shared the realization that staying human matters more than orders. The SS officer lowers his hand, turns, walks to his truck, drives away. The Hauptmann turns to prisoners. "Keep moving, stay together. We'll get you through this." Sunlight pierces clouds, rifles lowered. Shared food passes between former enemies. That night, the guard with the limp and scar approaches Buckham, hands him sausage wrapped in paper. "For your drawings, so you remember." "Remember what?" The guard gestures at everything. "That not all of us were monsters." Walks away. Buckham unwraps the sausage. Inside is a photograph, a German family. Woman and 2 children, smiling, creased, worn. The guard's family. Maybe dead, maybe alive, fleeing Soviets, but he tucks it into his diary, because even in the collapse of a regime built on cruelty, small acts of mercy survived, and those gestures mattered more than victory. Humanity travels further than cruelty. Small gestures bridge enemies in a collapsing world. The war is ending. But before it ends, something more important happens. Men remember they're human. Guards and prisoners, Germans and allies, perpetrators and victims. In the spring mud of a dying empire, humanity proves stronger than ideology, and Buckham's pencil records it all. April 1945, rumors of liberation spread like electricity. American tanks 20 kilometers west, British forces pushing north. But darker rumors spread just as fast. The SS will march them again, use them as shields, execute them to eliminate witnesses. Prisoners walk caught between hope and fear. At night, men make plans. If liberation comes, I'll find my brother. I'll marry that girl. I'll eat my mother's cooking. If. The if haunts everything. 200 kilometers east, Stalag Luft III sits abandoned. Barracks empty, wire rusts, and there barely visible 3 faint depressions. Tom, Dick, Harry, the Great Escape tunnels, March 1944. 76 men crawled through, 50 shot by the Gestapo. Only 3 made it home. Now just depressions and frozen soil, fading like memory itself. Buckham thinks about how quickly history disappears. He touches his diary. Pages filthy, stained with mud-sweat blood. Some sketches smudged beyond recognition. But they exist. By candlelight, he writes, "Some guards were cruel, some guards were kind. Both truths live in the same winter. A moral paradox he cannot resolve. The guard who beat a man, the guard who shared cigarettes, the woman who poured water, the villagers who turned away, the SS who tried to kill them, the Luftwaffe who protected them. Humanity and cruelty woven together. You can't separate them." The diary captures this complexity in ways official reports never will. Official reports don't record the guard who cried when a prisoner died. Don't record the child who gave rum. Don't record two men sitting in snow after friendly fire just breathing. Official reports record numbers, dates, casualties, not truth. After the war, the Long March will be buried in bureaucracy. No medals, no recognition. Prisoners return to families who can't understand. They're told to move on. Forget. The war is over. Let it stay buried. But some truths refuse to stay buried. Stalag Luft III is dismantled. By 1950, plowed under. Land returned to Polish farmers who plant wheat where prisoners starved. Grass grows over parade ground. Trees where wire stood. Birds where guard towers loomed. The camp disappears. But Buckham's diary survives, carried across 100 kilometers of frozen hell, hidden from guards, stained with fingerprints of a man who refused to let truth die. Sketches crude, handwriting shaky, but real. Decades later, historians find the diary, study sketches, cross-reference dates, interview survivors, and realize this is one of the only complete eyewitness accounts of the Long March. One that captures not just facts, but truth. Not just what happened, but what it meant. Buckham didn't intend to become a historian, just an artist trying to stay sane. A prisoner trying to remember he was human. A man with a pencil fighting erasure. But in fighting for himself, he preserved something larger. The testimony of 10,000 men. A death march that revealed humanity in mechanized inhumanity. Archival images dissolve into quiet modern forests. Camera pans empty fields where Stalag Luft III stood. Wind blows, trees sway. But if you know where to look, old maps, archival photos, survivor testimonies, you can still see faint outlines. Foundations, wire paths, tunnel depressions, history fading, but not forgotten. Slow piano fades, not mournful, not triumphant, just present. History is not past. It's always present, always speaking, if we choose to listen. Reflection, silence after the storm, the weight of remembering in a world that prefers to forget. April 29, 1945, Moosburg, Germany. The sound comes first. Engines, not German, deeper, American. The ground shakes. Tank treads. Close, getting closer. Prisoners stand frozen. Real or hallucination. Then through morning mist they appear. Sherman tanks, American flags, white stars. Patton's 14th Armored Division crashes through the gates of Stalag 70A like the hand of God. Gates explode. Metal screeches, wire snaps, 3 seconds of absolute silence. 10,000 prisoners stare. Then, they're here, they're really here, lol, liberation. Men climb wire with bare hands, not feeling barbs, cutting palms. Fall to knees, reach toward tanks like drowning men reaching for lifeboats. Some weep, some laugh. Some stand in shocked minds, unable to accept it's over. An American soldier, 19, from Nebraska, jumps from his tank. A prisoner grabs him, hugs him, won't let go. The soldier just holds him while he sobs. Buckham stands apart, hands shaking, pulls out his diary, opens to blank page, tries to draw. His hands tremble so badly the pencil won't cooperate. Lines go everywhere. Just shaking lines that capture nothing and everything. Trembling lines capturing indescribable relief. He's crying. Tears hit the page, smudging the marks. He closes the diary, presses it against his chest, breathes. May 2nd, 1945, Trenthorst, Germany. Remaining columns near Lübeck see them coming. British tanks. Montgomery's 11th Armored Division. Union Jacks snapping. Prisoners don't wait. They run. Starving men who could barely walk now run on feet wrapped in bloody rags. A British tank commander opens his hatch, looks at skeletal men running toward him. His face breaks. Jesus Christ, what did they do to you? A Canadian reaches the tank first, touches the metal hull, looks up. We're going home. The commander nods. can't speak. The march is over. 9,000 survive against impossible odds. Out of 10,000, they are free. Buckham returns to England by ship. Can't eat solid food. Can't sleep. Can't process what freedom means. At a Red Cross station in Dover, a volunteer approaches, places a donut in one hand, tea in the other, looks at his face, asks gently, "How are you, lad?" Buckham stares at the donut, the tea, her face, opens his mouth. Nothing comes out. How do you answer that? After watching men freeze, after being strafed by your own planes, after walking through hell, after witnessing humanity and cruelty woven so tight you can't separate them, he can't. So he just smiles, a broken smile that says, "I survived." The woman nods, understands, pats his hand. 20 seconds of black screen, distant wind fading to peace. Later alone, Buckham opens his diary. Pages worn, fragile, stained with survival. He reads his words, written in desperation, defiance, hope, and realizes he survived because of small acts of mercy. A kettle of water, rum from a boy, a cigarette shared, sausage with a photograph inside. 10,000 men walked through the coldest winter in 50 years, through starvation, disease, friendly fire, collapsing empire. 9,000 survived, not because of weapons, not tactics, but because humanity refused to die. Small gestures of mercy survived. Compassion found a way. They didn't defeat the Reich with guns. They defeated it by staying human when the world tried to make them monsters. Black screen. Final words. In a world collapsing into brutality, 10,000 men survived because of brotherhood and because even in enemy territory, small acts of mercy lit the road to freedom. They didn't defeat the Reich with weapons. They reminded history that humanity is the only victory that lasts. Buckham's liberation sketch fades to white. Modern forests of Sagan, empty, peaceful. Trees where barracks stood, grass where wire cut. Birds where men starved. Tunnels gone, wire gone, barracks gone, but memory remains. Not in monuments, not in reports, but in a diary, in sketches on cigarette paper, in trembling pencil lines drawn by a man who refused to let truth die. The story stands as testament to resilient human spirit under extreme suffering. Even in war's darkest winter, forbidden acts of documentation and compassion exposed forgotten truths, turning death marches into testaments of resilient humanity. Camera lingers on empty forest, wind through trees, history fades, but some truths refuse to fade. Some truths survive in the hands of those brave enough to record them. Fade to black.